My name is Nancy Hill, and I'm 32 years old. I never imagined that the moment my son needed the world the most would be the same moment I realized how alone I truly was. The day everything began, I posted in the family group chat. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just a simple update. Ryan has been doubled over in pain. Doctor thinks his appendix is inflamed. Surgery likely. I'll be at the hospital all day. 5 likes, no calls, no "do you need anything?" Just digital thumbs floating in silence. I told myself they were busy, distracted. Maybe they thought I didn't want help. But I knew the truth, even if I still refused to say it out loud. They'd stopped showing up long before this. I was pacing my tiny kitchen while Ryan lay curled up on the couch, pale and whispering that he was okay, even though he could barely stand. I tried calling my mom, straight to voicemail. My dad didn't pick up either. My sister-in-law declined the call. My brother didn't bother returning it. Not anger, not disappointment, just numbness. The kind that sits heavy in your chest like wet cement. At one point, I heated soup I knew Ryan wouldn't eat. I stirred it just to keep my hands busy. The spoon clinked against the pot in this rhythm that almost drowned out the fear creeping up my throat. If something happens to me, who will take care of Ryan? That question hit me harder than any bad news ever had. I didn't have an answer. Then, at 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Aunt Linda. Her message wasn't long. No guilt, no theatrics, just, "Do you want me to come help out for a few days?" I didn't even type a reply. I called her crying, and she said she'd be here in 45 minutes. She arrived carrying grocery bags, fresh towels, and that calming presence she always kept tucked under her coat, like it was part of her wardrobe. "Sweetheart, go sleep. I'll sit with Ryan." And I did. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. The next morning, I was awake by 4:30, stomach twisted in knots, my brain running through every worst-case scenario imaginable. When Aunt Linda showed up at 5:45 with hot coffee, a warm blanket, and a small art kit for Ryan, I nearly broke down right there in the lobby. We checked in at 6 o'clock. Ryan was quiet, eyes wide, clinging to my hand like I was the only thing keeping him anchored. I kept pretending to be brave, hoping he wouldn't notice how my hands shook. I kept looking toward the hospital entrance, ridiculous hope clinging to me like static. Maybe Mom will show up. Maybe Dad will surprise me. Maybe someone will walk through those sliding doors. No one did. Just Aunt Linda, the woman my family rolled their eyes at for being too artsy, too single, too different. The one they only remembered when they needed help moving furniture or feeding their cat over the holidays. She was the only one who stayed with me. 2.5 hours in a plastic chair while I stared at the wall, praying the next doctor to come through the door wasn't bringing bad news. The surgeon finally came out. "It was close," he said. "The appendix had just started leaking. 12 more hours could have been much worse. Ryan was safe. He'd be okay." My legs went weak. Aunt Linda steadied me. I couldn't even speak. We stayed 3 nights in the hospital. Aunt Linda never left. She brought clean clothes, snacks. She joked with Ryan. She made the nurses laugh. She turned a sterile room into something that felt alive again. My parents didn't call. My brother didn't text. But I saw their Instagram stories. Wine tastings, charcuterie boards, smiles. Like their nephew wasn't lying in a hospital bed with stitches in his abdomen. On Monday, we finally got home. Ryan was tired but smiling. He asked if Aunt Linda could stay, and she said she'd already cleared her week. I nearly cried. I had just settled on the couch, actually breathing for once, when my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Hey, sweetie, hope you're all good now. Your brother needs $2,500. You always help. When can you send it?" I stared at the screen, read it once, twice, 5 times. She hadn't called once during the surgery, didn't check on Ryan, didn't ask if I was okay. But now she was asking for money, not even for herself, but for my brother, who made more than I did and hadn't spoken to me in 4 months. I opened my banking app, transferred 50 cents, typed 3 words. "You're cut off." Then I turned my phone to silent and slept harder than I had in days. Morning came too fast. My screen lit up like fireworks, missed calls, angry texts, voicemails full of accusations. But the real shock came at 9:12 a.m. A number I didn't recognize, a polite, rehearsed voice. "Hello, Ms. Hill. This is Alan, your father's attorney. We need to discuss your ongoing financial obligation related to the family's shared mortgage arrangement." My heart stopped. My grip tightened on the phone. "What financial obligation?" I asked. He paused, too long. "I'm referring to your required monthly contribution to your brother's home. You can't simply stop paying." Something in me snapped. I hung up. He called back. I ignored him. Then my dad texted, "You can't just stop. We all agreed. You're putting your brother in a tough spot." And there it was, the reality they'd been hiding behind polite silence and fake family loyalty. They didn't care about Ryan's surgery. They didn't care about me. They cared about the money. I sat on my couch in old sweatpants, still smelling faintly of hospital antiseptic, my son asleep down the hall, stitches still fresh. And I laughed. Not a happy laugh. A bitter, exhausted, finally I see it laugh. Because I knew in that moment everything was about to change, and they had no idea what was coming next. I didn't respond to my dad's text. I didn't pick up when the lawyer called the third time. Instead, I forwarded the voicemail to the one person who had earned the right to be in my life. Aunt Linda. She arrived an hour later holding a laptop, a thick manila folder, and an expression that said she had been preparing for this moment for years. "Sit," she told me gently, glancing toward Ryan's room. "We're going to handle this properly." I sat at the dining table, trying not to shake. Linda flipped open her laptop with the efficiency of someone who'd been burned by this family before and learned to fight back. "They tried something similar with me once," she said, pulling up documents. "Your father invested in a group property project 10 years ago. When it failed, he tried convincing me to cover a shared debt. It wasn't shared. I shut it down fast." I blinked at her. "They did this to you?" She nodded. "And now they're trying it with you. Worse, actually. They're using you to hold up your brother's house." My stomach twisted. "Linda, I've been paying $600 a month for 5 years. "Exactly." She opened a spreadsheet. "And not once did they put it in writing. That's your way out." For the first time since the surgery, my breath didn't feel like it was caught in my throat. We spent 2 hours drafting a formal statement. And declaring I was under no legal or contractual obligation, citing lack of documentation and consent, warning that future requests would be considered harassment. I signed it. Linda proofread it twice. Then I emailed it to the lawyer and CC'd my father. When I blocked the lawyer's number, I felt a weight lift off my chest, like unclenching a fist I didn't know I'd been clenching for years. But I wasn't prepared for the next blow. At 4:10 p.m., the doorbell rang. I was making grilled cheese for Ryan, thinking it was the delivery guy Aunt Linda had arranged. Instead, I opened the door to see both of my parents standing on the porch. My mom wore her favorite "I'm disappointed in you" face. My dad had that tight, restrained anger look, the one he used when pretending to stay calm. They didn't even ask about Ryan. Not a single, "How's he healing?" Not even a fake, "Hope you're doing okay." My mother stepped inside like she owned the place. "We need to talk," she said, her voice clipped. Aunt Linda appeared from the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of tea. She moved with quiet purpose and sat at the dining table like she had been expecting them. My dad launched into it immediately. "You can't cut the family off like this. We had an agreement. Your brother is counting on you. We're all counting on you." Counting on me. The phrase felt like a dirty weight. Mom chimed in, her tone dripping with guilt. "You know your brother's under pressure. His family needs stability. We thought you understood that." There was a ringing in my ears. My vision sharpened like the air before a storm. Aunt Linda placed her mug down with a small, sharp click. "Enough." Both my parents turned. Linda didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The only person who needed stability these last few weeks was Nancy. "And where were you?" she asked quietly. My mom bristled. "We were at a vineyard," Linda said flatly. "The same weekend your grandson was in a hospital bed after emergency surgery." My mom's mouth opened, but no words came out. "And now," Linda continued, "you come here not to check on them, not to apologize, but to demand money?" Dad's jaw tightened. "This is family business." "No," Linda snapped softly. "This is exploitation." The room fell silent. My parents stood frozen, shocked, offended, unmasked. Linda leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You drained her for years. You didn't care that she struggled, that she went part-time after having Ryan, that she was raising a child alone. You just kept taking because she never said no." My mother tried to interrupt. "Linda." Linda held up one hand. It was enough to silence her. "You only call Nancy when you need something. You only show up when it benefits you. And now you're angry because for the first time, she's setting a boundary." My dad's face turned red. "This is between us and our daughter." "No," Linda said. "Not anymore." She reached into the manila folder and pulled out a document, a single sheet of paper stamped and dated. Their eyes widened. "I've been managing an old family account for years," she said. "Your father knows this, and as of today, you're cut off from it permanently. I won't be covering your shortfalls. I won't be fixing your messes. You're on your own." My mom's face crumpled. My dad stared like someone had doused him with cold water. Slowly, they backed away from the table. They left without saying goodbye. I locked the door behind them and leaned against it, breathing hard. Linda walked over, placing a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said. "Your family drew their line years ago. You're just finally drawing yours." For hours after they left, the house was too quiet. Not peaceful, eerie, like the air was waiting for something to crack. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the silence. I think they were. For the next 3 days, nothing happened. No texts, no calls, no unexpected knocks on the door. Just silence, thick, unnatural, and humming with tension like the moments before an earthquake. If I didn't know my family, that silence might have felt like peace. But I did know them, and silence from them was never peace. It was strategy. Aunt Linda stayed on the couch those nights, reading with Ryan, keeping the house warm with her steady presence. Sometimes I'd stand in the hallway and watch them. Ryan curled under a blanket, Linda animatedly describing book characters, and I'd feel something in my chest loosen for the first time in years. A piece of me wondered if this was what a real family felt like. By Thursday, life almost felt normal again. I dropped Ryan off at school, the first time since his surgery. He waved, smiling like the brave little boy he was, and for a moment, I believed everything might finally be settling. I even allowed myself to buy groceries at a slower pace, letting the weight of the past week drift a little. But when I got home, an email sat in my inbox from my brother's wife. Subject, mortgage. Her message was short, sharp, and dripping with passive aggression. "I heard you're not helping with the house anymore. This puts us in a really tight place. We're asking you to think about your nephew and the example you're setting. You've always been the dependable one." Not a single word about Ryan. Not even a forced, "hope he's recovering." Just guilt, cold and strategic. I didn't respond. By Saturday morning, my brother finally called. For the first time in months. I watched his name flash on my screen. I didn't pick up. His voicemail came through 20 seconds later. "Look, this is getting out of hand. We're already behind on 2 payments. Mom and Dad are disappointed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. It's not just about you anymore. It affects the whole family." I stared out the window for a long moment after that. It never mattered to them when it affected me. Not when I slept 4 hours a night. Not when I worked 2 part-time jobs. Not when I went through pregnancy alone. Not when Ryan was struggling. Not when he was on a hospital bed. But now it affected the whole family. That line echoed in my head all day. That evening, while Ryan was drawing and Linda was chopping vegetables for dinner, she glanced over her shoulder at me. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. I told her about the voicemail, the panic in my brother's voice, the pressure in his words, the entitlement wrapped in every sentence, and then I admitted something I hadn't let myself say aloud. "I think they're more desperate than they're letting on." Linda nodded slowly, her expression shifting, not surprised, just confirming something. "There's something you need to consider, yeah," she said. "If they're behind on payments, they may be close to default." I shrugged, almost defensively. Not my problem anymore. "But it could still affect you." That froze me. Linda set down the knife and turned fully toward me. "Part of your brother's house is tied to your father's name. If the bank comes after him, they could start looking at anything that was ever shared, accounts, agreements, even that old joint account from the early mortgage days." My stomach dropped. "That account still exists?" I whispered. "Maybe," Linda said. "Or maybe they're hoping you forgot." The next morning proved her right. I got a security alert from my bank. Someone had tried to authorize a payment using that old shared account. My brother. The notification was cold and clear. "Unusual activity detected. Transaction declined." I froze the account immediately, my fingers trembling. Seconds later, my mother called. I didn't answer. Her voicemail was softer than her usual tone, coded in an attempt at remorse, but not quite real. "Nancy, honey, I know we weren't there for you during the surgery, but family pulls together when it matters. Can't we just move forward? We need you." Need you. That was the truth buried under every word. Not love you, not miss you, not care about you. Just need. I texted back one line. Moving forward means moving on. I'm done. I turned my phone face down on the counter, and for a moment, the silence felt like a final door shutting. Minutes later, Aunt Linda came into the living room, wiping her hands on a towel. "I just canceled the private insurance I've been paying for your parents," she said simply. I looked up, startled. "You were paying for them?" "For years." Her voice was steady. "But I'm done too." She said it so calmly, I almost didn't register the weight of her words. 2 generations of women, finally saying no. That night, the silence returned, not the eerie one from before. This time it felt expectant, like the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next crack in the family's perfect facade. And it didn't take long. On Tuesday, Ryan's school called. A woman claiming to be his grandmother had tried to pick him up early. They'd stopped her. She didn't see him. She didn't get close. But that wasn't the point. I was in the car within minutes, driving like the world was on fire. I marched into the school, throat tight, hands shaking, and scratched both my parents' names off the emergency contact list with a thick black marker. Linda was waiting for me when I got home. She didn't say, "It'll be okay." She didn't say, "They won't try again." She said, "We're changing the locks." And for the first time since this started, I could feel something shifting inside me. Not fear, not panic. Resolve. My parents were unraveling, and they were about to learn I wasn't going to unravel with them. The locksmith arrived that same evening. Fast, efficient, and a little confused about why two women stood guard on the porch like we were expecting a siege. By the time he finished, we had new locks, new keys, and a security camera pointed directly at the walkway. Aunt Linda didn't joke. She didn't reassure. She prepared. When Ryan went to bed, I stood in the hallway watching his chest rise and fall, trying to process everything. My parents hadn't visited, hadn't called, hadn't cared. But the moment money, control, and reputation slipped from their hands, they became desperate enough to try taking my son out of school. I didn't want revenge. I wanted safety, and I wanted distance. But the universe doesn't give you space when your family's falling apart. It gives you events. And the next one came sooner than I expected, the foreclosure confession. On Thursday morning, a car pulled into my driveway, a white SUV, windows tinted, engine still running. My stomach tightened. I knew that car. My brother's wife, Emily, stepped out first. She looked exhausted. Hair messy, eyes puffy, clothes rumpled like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't ring the bell. She just stood there, trembling. I opened the door slowly. I need to talk to you," she said. She didn't ask to come in. I didn't invite her. We spoke on the porch. Her voice cracked as she explained how they were months behind on the mortgage, how the bank had started foreclosure procedures, how their credit cards were maxed out, how collectors were calling, how my father sold his collectible coin sets, the ones he kept in velvet-lined drawers. She wasn't asking for money. She didn't dare. She only said one thing. "Can Aunt Linda help us?" The desperation in her voice was unmistakable. Not aggression, not manipulation, just panic. Behind her, my brother sat in the SUV, engine running, head down, unable to look at me. He wouldn't come to the door. Maybe shame held him back. Maybe fear. Maybe entitlement collapsing in real time. Aunt Linda stepped outside, leaving the door open behind her. "I'll talk to her privately," she said. The two of them walked a few feet away. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the moment Linda told Emily something she didn't want to hear. Emily covered her mouth, her knees buckled. Linda held her upright. Then the SUV door opened, and my brother finally looked up. One glance, a mix of resentment and helplessness. He didn't wave, he didn't apologize. He just put the SUV in reverse and drove away. Emily got in without another word. When Linda returned, she looked tired, not physically, but soul-tired. "They're not telling you everything," she said. "They're more desperate than they want you to know." I didn't ask for details. I wasn't ready for them. Financial ruins they hid from me. Over dinner, Linda finally told me the truth. My brother and his wife had taken out 2 additional refinancing loans. They'd spent money faster than they made it. My parents had co-signed several debts, quietly, behind closed doors. When those debts defaulted, pressure fell on my father. My mother started selling jewelry. My dad sold his expensive collectibles. And still, it wasn't enough. They hadn't asked for my help because they wanted family unity. They asked because without my $600 every month, their finances imploded, and they blamed me for it. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was stunned. For years, I thought I was supporting my brother temporarily. In reality, I was holding up their entire financial house of cards. And now it had collapsed. The attempted pickup, round 2. The next day, everything spiraled quickly. I got a call from Ryan's school counselor. A woman had appeared at the school office asking about Ryan's schedule. She didn't attempt pickup this time, but she wanted information. Too much information. Their security flagged her. I didn't need to hear her name. I already knew. My mother. That night, Linda didn't make suggestions. She made decisions. "We're getting a camera for the backyard, too. We're documenting everything. We're ready if she tries again." There was steel in her voice, the kind that only comes from living through old battles and refusing to lose another. The email that changed everything. At midnight, unable to sleep, I checked my email. A message from my dad. No greeting, no apology, no context. Just one line. "I don't know what happened to you, but you've changed." I stared at the words, heart pounding, not with fear, but clarity. He was right. I had changed. I was done being their fixer, their wallet, their silent support beam. I was done being guilted and used. I was done being the daughter they only remembered when they needed something. I turned off my phone, crawled into bed beside Ryan, and kissed his forehead. "I'm changing for you," I whispered, "for us." Aunt Linda stood guard in the living room reading a novel, the lamp casting a warm amber glow. Our home felt different that night. Not scared, not chaotic. Just shifting. My parents' world was collapsing. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't collapsing with them. The days that followed felt strangely quiet, like the world was holding its breath. Ryan went back to school with a bounce in his step, the pain behind him. Aunt Linda kept her usual calm presence in the house, making tea, folding blankets, writing notes on sticky pads for things I would forget. And my family? They stayed silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, the calculating kind. I knew them well enough to understand they weren't done. Silence was just the phase where they regrouped, reassessed, and prepared their next move. But this time I wasn't waiting around to be blindsided. One afternoon, while Ryan and Aunt Linda were building a pillow fort in the living room, my phone buzzed with a call from a random local number. I considered ignoring it, but something told me to answer. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Hello?" A soft breath, then my mother's voice. She didn't acknowledge our last message, didn't mention the attempted school pickup. She acted as though months hadn't passed in silence. "We're under a lot of stress," she said instead. "Your brother is struggling. Your father isn't sleeping. The house is, well, you know." "No, how's Ryan? No, I'm sorry." Just a slow, winding path toward guilt. Then her voice cracked, intentionally or not, I couldn't tell. "Do you think you'll ever forgive us?" Aunt Linda looked up from the floor, meeting my eyes. She mouthed one sentence. The truth she had told me before. "It's not about forgiveness, it's about who shows up." I didn't respond to my mother. I simply hung up. Later that week, news reached me through one of my cousins. My brother had taken a job working overnight security at a warehouse. The same kind of job he used to ridicule. The same shift he once told me was beneath him. Maybe he thought I'd feel vindicated. Maybe he hoped I'd gloat. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired of the cycle. Tired of being the only one held responsible for everyone's choices. That evening, when Ryan was in the bath, Aunt Linda pulled me aside. "They're calling again," she said, showing her phone. Local numbers. Blocked numbers. Not saying who they were, but she knew. "Your mother keeps asking if I'll talk to you, if I can ease things." I sighed. "I'm sorry." She touched my shoulder gently. "Don't be. I made my decision years ago. I'm just glad you're finally making yours." We sat at the dining table while she made us ginger tea. The steam curled softly between us, like a fragile peace offering from the universe. "Linda," I said quietly, "why did you stay close to them at all, after everything they did?" She smiled, but it was sad. "Because I stayed close to you." The next morning, Ryan woke up asking for pancakes. I made them from scratch, the way he liked, with chocolate chips forming a crooked smile. For the first time since his surgery, the house felt warm, like something in me was finally healing too. But healing doesn't erase consequences. By afternoon, another voicemail arrived, this time from my father. His tone was sharper, the veneer cracking. "You don't understand how serious this is. The house is nearly gone. The bank is calling. Interest is piling up. Your brother has 2 kids, Nancy. 2. And you're sitting there acting like you're the victim. Enough is enough. Fix this." Fix this? Of course, I had always been the fixer. I deleted the voicemail without replying. That night, while Ryan slept, Aunt Linda and I sat on opposite ends of the couch. She closed her book, watching me quietly. "You're thinking too loud," she said. I laughed under my breath. "I guess I am." "What's going on in that head of yours?" I hesitated, then admitted, "I keep wondering how long until they show up here again, and what they'll say next." Linda nodded thoughtfully. "They're running out of options. When people run out of options, they often reveal who they truly are." Her words settled into me like a stone finding its place in the riverbed. My family wasn't acting out of love. They weren't fighting to reconnect. They were drowning, and they wanted to pull me under with them. But I wasn't the same Nancy who used to bend over backward for them. As I turned off the lights and checked the locks one last time, I realized something. I was no longer afraid of what my parents might do next. I was ready. Whatever came, I wouldn't fold, I wouldn't pay, I wouldn't break. Their world was falling apart, and I was finally learning how to live in mine. 2 days later, the unraveling finally reached its breaking point. It was early morning, the kind where the sky is still gray and the world feels suspended. Ryan was eating cereal while Aunt Linda watered the plants by the window. Everything felt calm, almost too calm. Then someone knocked on the door. Not the frantic kind, not the polite kind, just a firm, controlled knock. The kind people use when they've rehearsed what they're about to say. I opened the door to find my father standing there alone. He looked older, clothes wrinkled, eyes tired in a way I'd never seen. "No mom, no brother, just him." "Nancy," he said. His voice was thin. "We need to talk." I didn't invite him in. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want?" He paused, studying my face like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. "You're going to let the family fall apart," he said quietly. "Over money." I felt something like disbelief rise in my chest. "Over money?" I repeated. "Or over the way you used me for years?" He shook his head. "You don't understand the full picture." "Then explain it," I said, "right now." His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he'd walk away. Instead, he exhaled sharply, shoulders sagging. "Fine," he said. "You want the truth? Your brother is drowning. Your mother and I, we signed for more than we should have. There were financial issues we hid. The market went bad. Some investments failed. We thought we'd recover, but we didn't. The debt kept growing." I stared at him, my heartbeat thudding slow and heavy. "How much debt?" I asked. He hesitated, too long. "Nearly 120,000. The air left my lungs. "And you thought I could help with that?" I whispered. "You always did before," he said. "You were the stable one, the responsible one. We thought—" He swallowed hard. "We thought you would step up again." I laughed. Not a joyful laugh. A laugh that scraped the inside of my chest raw. "You're asking me to fix a problem you created," I said. "A problem you hid from me, while I was raising Ryan alone, while you ignored us, while you were at vineyards and vacations." He looked away. I realized then that this wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't even an apology. It was desperation disguised as reason. "There's one more thing," he said. Of course there was. He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket and held it out. I didn't take it. "What is that?" "A statement from the bank," he said. "If the foreclosure goes through, they may come after anything tied to the original shared account. If you'd just help him—" "No." The word came out sharper than I expected. His eyes lifted slowly. He looked shocked, like the word had never been used on him before. "No?" he repeated. "I'm done," I said. "You don't get to break things and expect me to fix them. Not anymore." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, but nothing came out. For the first time in my life, my father had nothing to say. Finally, he whispered, "I don't know what happened to you." I didn't flinch. "You taught me to be responsible," I said quietly. "You just never thought I'd use that responsibility on myself." He pressed his lips together, defeated. And without another word, he turned and walked down the driveway. I didn't watch him go. I didn't need to. Inside, Aunt Linda looked up from her tea. "Well?" she asked. "They're done," I said, "and so am I." She nodded once, like she'd been waiting for me to get here. "Good," she said. "Now you can start living your own life." There was no dramatic moment, no triumphant music, no cinematic closure. Just the soft, steady sound of Ryan giggling as he tried to pour more cereal into his bowl. Just the warmth of sunlight through the window. Just the quiet relief of finally choosing myself. Later that evening, Linda brought out a folder, the same one she'd shown my parents weeks ago. Inside was everything I needed. Documentation proving that every shared obligation had been informal, unbound, unenforceable. Proof that I had been supporting my brother voluntarily, not legally. Proof that I owed them nothing. She placed the folder in my hands. "Keep it," she said. "Not because you'll need it, but because you'll never again let them rewrite the story." I held the folder against my chest. A strange, peaceful heaviness settled inside me. "I'm free," I said. "You are," she replied. Ryan came running over, waving a stick figure drawing of the three of us holding hands. "This is our family," he said proudly. And for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel the urge to explain or correct anything. He was right. My family wasn't the people who shared my blood. It was the people who showed up, the people who stayed, the people who made our home feel like safety instead of fear. I tucked him into bed that night, kissed his forehead, and whispered something I finally believed. "We're going to be okay." And as the house settled into quiet, warm stillness, I realized the truth I should have known all along. I wasn't the one who broke. I was the one who walked away whole.